Okay, time for another Pauper top 8 analysis where we look at the replays of the Pauper challenge from last Sunday and look at all the matches being played, at the deck list that people brought to top 8 and interesting plays, interesting deck choices, and what that means for the metagame. So let's jump right in. Once again, I'll be doing this in a spoiler format where we know the results of all the games, and the first matchup we're going to look at is HJ Kaiser against Grinder A in one of the quarterfinals. So let's take a look at the deck list. We have Grinder A on red deck wins, mono red aggro. Looks like a pretty standard list filled with 1 mana, 2 power creatures with various drawbacks, and Burning Tree Emissary to power it all up with pretty explosive starts. Goblin Bushwhacker can also lead to some explosive turns and pump your board. Interestingly enough, there's none of the new Goblin 1-drop here. Is it Frenzied Goblin? That could allow your creatures to get through blockers. They choose to go with Goblin Heel Cutter instead as their way of getting through opposing blockers. 4 Lightning Bolts and 2 Fire Blast to finish it off. Just 1 Reckless Charge and then also 2 Reckless Abandon as kind of an alternative way of having a Fire Blast. Here you sacrifice creatures instead of your lands as a finisher. And Sting Scorcher, Smash to Smithereens. Gutshot is going to be interesting, and Electricity because Grinder A is going to be facing off against the eventual winner, HJ Kaiser, who is on Blue-Red Delver. And also a very standard list, pretty much exactly the stock list in the main deck, and then the sideboard also looks pretty standard. He has access to both Electricity and Swirling Sandstorm, with Sandstorm being a lot better in this matchup, but pretty difficult to enable early on because you do need to reach threshold and need to make sure that you don't die by that point. And Hydroblast should also be amazing because it counters any of Grinder A's spells and kills any of his creatures, so basically the perfect card to bring in this matchup. So let's start with that. And I'll be varying the replay speed a little bit from time to time, but yeah, if there's something to comment on. Foundry Street Denizen, the best opening for turn 1 out of Grinder A, and HJ Kaiser only has a tapped land here. Burning Tree Emissary, the best follow-up, and we see there's multiple Burning Tree Emissaries allowing Grinder A to completely flood the board here. 3rd Burning Tree Emissary, pretty insane start, and a follow-up creature. So now this Foundry Street Denizen is attacking for 5 damage on turn 2 on the play, and this is basically the unbeatable nut draw from the red deck wins deck. We see 4th Burning Tree Emissary was the draw for turn 3, and another creature coming down, so attacking for 11 damage here. After the block it's still 8 damage, and the game has ended on Oh yeah, the pause video, unpause video hotkey and the mute, unmute hotkey are like overlapping, so I need to make sure I don't accidentally mute myself. Thank you for pointing that out. But yeah, very fair game of Magic, definitely. Just all the Burning Tree Emissaries showing up and ending the game by turn 3. And now we move on to game 2 of that match. HJ Kaiser gets to be on the play, and also gets to bring in a bunch of Hydroblasts and maybe Swirling Sandstorms as well. And maybe that helps him improve the matchup. Also, the red deck wins draw that we saw there is obviously not something that is very realistically going to happen every time. Once again, only tapped land on turn 1. And once again, Foundry Street Denizen on turn 2, though this time there's no second land for Grinder A. and his 2-drop runs into Spellstutter Sprite, so already going a lot better for HJ Kaiser. Spellstutter Sprite is the main reason why this matchup is tough for mono red, because they rely on pretty much only 1-drops out of their deck with only very few 2-drops, and HJ Kaiser managed to get the Spellstutter back to his hand here, ninja it, draw an extra card, and here Grinder A is even willingly casting a 1-drop into the Spellstutter into open 2 mana, allowing HJ Kaiser to use both his mana and his board development like as efficiently as he wants to. So that seems a little bit strange to me. I think I would have preferred to just cast nothing there, and then HJ Kaiser is either not developing the Spellstutter and taking the turn back, or like running this out for no value. This just helped HJ Kaiser to run the Goblin cohort into a Spellstutter that you knew about. I'm not sure what the plan was there for Grinder A. And if he just waits a turn, maybe he can build up a turn where there's 2 1-drops in the hand and 2 lands to work off of, and then you cast 1 1-drop, it gets Spellstuttered, then at least you're resolving the second one. Yeah, and keeping it in hand just seems a lot better than trying to overload the Spellstutter Sprite, or you try to find a second land and the Lightning Bolt, and then you try to cast your 1-drop and then Lightning Bolt the Spellstutter. But yeah, like running this into the Spellstutter seems to be a losing play where you just give up on any chance of... Yeah, they do play ninja. He already ninja'd the Spellstutter once, which is why Grinder A knew about it. And if there's a second ninja, that completely wrecks him as well, because the Spellstutter ends up in hand again. So let's move on though. Grinder A is still on 1 land and making some desperate plays trying to fight through these Spellstutters. Double Preordain indicates though that there's no more blue interaction on HJ Kaiser's side. Looking for some more spells to work off of, and there's the Burning Tree Emissary, double Burning Tree Emissary, showing why Grinder A was willing to keep this 1-lander, because there was a pretty explosive turn 2 waiting for him if he ever found a land. So now HJ Kaiser has some catching up to do. Scratched down one of the 2/2s, Lightning Bolts the other 2/2, and got the board under control pretty nicely. Jekyll Familiar cannot attack unless it has a different creature to attack with, and the Bushwhacker gets counterspelled here, so Jekyll Familiar is unable to attack with no companion. Spellstutter keeps beating in, and there's the second ninja recycling the Spellstutter for the second time and being able to cast it for the third time. So pretty amazing for HJ Kaiser what this Spellstutter was able to do over the span of the game. And Grinder A once again doesn't really care about it, just runs another 1 mana card into the Spellstutter. And here we see why. There's an Electricity taking down the Spellstutter, so this Bushwhacker gets to resolve and attack for 5. But still, HJ Kaiser is at a very comfortable life total and drawing 2 cards a turn now with this ninja going uncontested. Brainstorm lets him see 3 extra cards. Ashburns shuffles away the bad cards that were stuck in his hand. And Augur of Bolas here, and it was pretty interesting to me that he decided to keep Island open instead of a red source, because there's many 1 mana red cards that you cast here, and not that many 1 mana blue cards that you can hit off of Augur, but it is possible he was just holding Hydroblast in his hand and was willing to wait a turn on any red cards he hits off of Augur, but just represent Hydroblast. So this would indicate Hydroblast to me out of Grinder A's perspective, but there's not much he can really do about it. And he hits Scrat. No, he shuffled after the Brainstorm, so there was no guaranteed hit for the Augur. He was just looking at 3 random new cards, because there was Brainstorm, then Ashburns, and then Augur. He also could have Augured before the Ashburns to get a guaranteed hit, but he chose not to. Maybe he just didn't have any spells that he wanted to set up on top, or maybe finding a new spell was worth more to him. But he finds Scrat here, so having the red card, or the red source not open for his red card, is backfiring a little bit, but it is still possible that there's a Hydroblast in hand, and Grinder A throws in the towel. So it's 1-1 now. HJ Kaiser takes it down with the spell stutter getting 3 spells and all the relevant creatures being bolted and squared down, and then Augur's just not something that you can fight through anymore. So now Grinder A gets to be on the play again and has his trusty turn 1 Foundry Street Denizen that showed up in all 3 of the games, and only a preordained by HJ Kaiser, so once again he's spending his turn 1 not contesting the board. But once again there's no second land for Grinder A, so not developing the board all that quickly. Land cycling for a mountain indicates that there's a burn spell available, and a pretty slow development by HJ Kaiser as well, but gets to scratch down this cohort here, Mud Brawler cohort. And then an attack for 4 still coming in though. And HJ Kaiser no third land apparently, but looks to find one with the Ponder. Decides that making his land drops is more important here than keeping the extra blue mana available, but does find the island to make up for that, so very good for him. Though there's no extra creature here, so pretty weak draw for Grinder A. This mock conscripts can't attack because there was no creature cast, so he's only attacking for 1, which is pretty frustrating out of his perspective. And the conscripts actually get bolted down. Jackal Familiar, Spellstutter Spite once again coming out and dealing with a 1 mana creature. Lightning Bolt tries to stop the Spellstutter, Hydroblast tries to stop the Lightning Bolt, and another Lightning Bolt. So that reveals why Grinder A was unable to put out more pressure, because there was just a handful of Lightning Bolts and no creatures available. Though now there's 2 creatures on the board, still threatening some damage. Fairy Miscreant comes out and can potentially block this Foundry Street Denizen for value. Well, not for value, the second Miscreant wasn't there, but yeah, now reducing Grinder A down to a single Dragon Familiar again, which cannot attack unless there's a haste creature to accompany it. Belly Dasher tries to be that haste creature, but we see Counterspell. It's also interesting to me that there's still Counterspell in the deck, because usually against these 1-drop based aggressive decks like Stompy and Mono Red, you do tend to shave some number of counterspells just because they're very inefficient. If you're fighting against 1 mana 2/2s with your 2 mana reactive card, it's both difficult to find a spot at which you can comfortably cast counterspell in, and it's going to be trading down on mana every time, so counterspell is a little bit unreliable. But once you have the board under control, having some counter magic available to stop your opponent from rebuilding a board is actually pretty nice. So I assume there's just a lower number of counterspells that were still in the deck to have reasonable top decks in the mid game, and just trying to have both a high concentration of removal spells and a reasonable combination of counterspells, just to make sure that you deal with every single threat out of the mono red deck. Because without a board presence, this deck can't really win. So yeah, that was kind of surprising that the counterspell showed up, but some low number of them were probably still in the deck. Yeah, exactly. I assume there's 3 Pyroblast coming in for sure, and then probably the Sandstorms as well. Then it's difficult to find room for counterspells to stay in the deck, and it's unclear what he took out. Maybe some Gushes or something, because we haven't seen any from him, but they do match up pretty well with the kill every threat plan. Once again, Electricity on a single 1/1. Not really what Grinder A wants to be doing, doesn't really help his main game plan to be fighting like 1/1 creatures with Electricities instead of putting more pressure on, so it might not even be correct to have the Electricities in the deck. Once again, every creature getting killed, and once again this Augur with a pretty weird tap, and once again HJ Kaiser actually getting punished for it right away. Last game he augured and kept blue open instead of red, then found a red spell and scred, though that might have been correct if there was a Hydroblast available. And this game, HJ Kaiser taps in a way where he has blue and red open and then finds a second counterspell. So we know that at least 2 counterspells were still in the deck, but now unable to cast that counterspell. So pretty awkward that both times he exactly tapped in a way that it didn't allow him to use the card that he top decked. Though there are still more red cards in the deck than counterspells, I would assume. So mathematically that's an okay play, but you're also much more timing dependent on your counterspell than you are with a red card, because the counterspell only works on the turn that your opponent casts their threat, and the red card would work a turn later as well. Okay, so Ninja recycles the Augur, so now HJ Kaiser has a nice card advantage engine going here to never run out of answers. Recast the Augur, we still know that there's counterspell in the hand. Most likely Grinder A is just sitting on lands or Fire Blast or something that are not helping him here. Yeah, you could cut some Delvers, that's true. That would make some sense, that he just kept in counterspells and boarded out Delvers so that his deck is all answers. Though Delvers that transform are reasonable blockers as well. Actually better blockers than the Fairy Miscreants. Okay, Jack of Familiar gets spell stuttered. There's still counterspell available, so pretty hopeless position here for Grinder A, and the game is going to end pretty quickly here from the attacks of all these small creatures. HJ Kaiser doesn't really have to worry about anything anymore. Weird timing on the land cycle, just thinning out the deck a little bit for the Ninja hit. I guess that makes sense, you just don't want to draw a land, so you get to land cycle here pretty freely. Replay is going a little bit slow at this point, yeah, and then the game ended. Grinder A just gives up to this attack, and that concludes the first quarterfinals. And now we have, so HJ Kaiser takes down red deck, wins with this blue-red Delver, and now we have Hey Nong Man against Green Prinny. So let's look at the, I guess that's not my browser button, that's the browser button while I was recording it. There we go. So Green Prinny against Hey Nong Man. Hey Nong Man on mono blue Delver, also running the 4 Vapor Snake, but seems to be his own version, not the one that, oh no, wait, never mind. No, it's not mono blue Delver. It's blue-white Prowess, a deck that was popularized by J-Series. The Seeker of the Way, elusive Spellfist Delver deck. Basically plays very similar to mono blue Delver, but you have Seeker of the Way as like an anti-aggressive card and also a little bit more sturdy of a threat, and then you maximize the value of free spells with 4 days, 3 mutagenic growth, a ton of cantrips, and just trigger all these prowesses as much as you can. And yeah, 1 Piracy Charm is both a way to give evasion and like a removal spell, and we will see it play an important part in this matchup, more or less. And then let's check what Green Prinny is playing, though basically plays the same thing every time. Tireless Tribe combo, only 2 Augur of Bolas here, and instead he has the 3rd Brainstorm, which some lists don't play, a Daze in the main deck, and the rest of this looks very standard. So the extra Daze and the extra Brainstorm over some Augurs and some Get Hexen probes are the interesting choices here. And Custody Scry is a very interesting choice that I've never seen anyone play, though it does go well with the transformative sideboard plan to just come up with a little bit more value, basically replacing 1 Spiral Golem with 1 Custody Scry. And the rest of this looks very similar to the Michael Jacobs sideboard, although there's a Piracy Charm available here as well. Trimming ninjas, yeah, I could see that, though the Spellstutter Sprite into Ninja curve is definitely strong, and we saw that wreck red deck win pretty hard. Okay, so pretty standard list here for green pretty, except some weird sideboard choices, and blue-white here, which can both apply a ton of pressure and have blockers on the board, then also have some free counter magic to fight with, but and also vapor snacks to fight over a combo, but kinda low on removal. And as soon as green pretty gets out of daze range, then the amount of interaction available here is going to be a little bit low. Though Seeker of the Way can also make opposing combos a little bit more difficult to do, because they need to have Gush to fuel the Tireless Tribe, otherwise you don't come up with enough damage. So interesting matchup, and we have gut shots here, Journey to Nowheres, and more Piracy Charm, more Dispel, so a ton of interaction in the sideboard to bring in for Heinongmen. So let's jump into that match and see how it plays out in blue-white prowess against Tireless Tribe. Heinongmen leads on Island and no one-drop, and green Prenny here brainstorming on turn 1, which is actually interesting because it basically contradicts what we discussed last week, and that says a lot about green Prenny's hand already. So I would assume this brainstorm is there to dodge Spellstutter Sprite, because green Prenny obviously doesn't know that his opponent is on blue-white prowess instead of mono-blue Delver. So brainstorming on turn 1 on your own turn would dodge your opponent's Spellstutter Sprite instead of passing the turn and then doing it on your opponent's end step. And last week we saw green Prenny willingly run his brainstorm into a Spellstutter Sprite when he knew the opponent had Spellstutter Sprite in hand, because he wanted to bait out Spellstutter and then resolve Tireless Tribe while his opponent was tapped out. So there was a willing giving up on the brainstorm as a bait card, because Spellstutter is pretty difficult to beat. Because you basically need to hard cast Circular Logic to make sure your spell resolves. So last week that indicated the brainstorm was not important and getting the Spellstutter out of the hand was important. And here he really needs to resolve the brainstorm. He is interested in getting that under Spellstutter Sprite, so that would indicate that there's no Tireless Tribe in hand yet, and that this brainstorm actually has some important filtering potential that green Prenny wants to hold on to. So I would assume that this means a slightly weaker hand where the selection of the brainstorm is still important, because he really wanted to resolve this and not just bait out Spellstutter. So Elusive Spellfist, the follow-up, and we see the upkeep land cycling here to shuffle away the contents of the brainstorm that green Prenny did not want, and another cantrip. So a lot of selection here to improve the hand. Ponder triggers the Spellfist, but it's kind of a slow clock still. Not all that threatening, not as good as the Seeker of the Way would be. And just in general pretty slow, that you have to keep fueling it with more spells. Also pretty interesting that we see Ponder into Brainstorm here. Usually if you Brainstorm first and then Ponder, you get a better improvement of your overall hand quality, and if you Ponder first and then Brainstorm, you get to see more cards if you're looking for a specific out. So if he's looking, for example, for an answer to Tireless Tribe, then this way he gets to see more cards to look for that specific. So we see Heinongmen looking for something specific here, more than just trying to improve the overall configuration of his hand. Yeah, I agree that I think I would cut some number of counter spells, and I would probably cut a number of ninjas first before I cut some delvers. So the tribe comes down, Circular Logic tries to keep the Seeker of the Way off of the board, so that indicates that green Prenny still thinks they need some time before they can combo off, and don't want to be facing down Seeker of the Way, beating them down while they take time to set up. Yeah, that's no problem. We're discussing the entire top 8 here. I'll be uploading it as all one big video anyway, so not really splitting this up into specific matches. Augur of Bolas being cast, which can both hold off some creature aggression and find an extra spell, and we see Gush being revealed here, though Green Prinny is not yet willing to cast that Gush. Would have allowed for an extra land drop, but also set back the number of islands a little bit, making it more difficult to combo off from there. And pretty aggressive mutagenic growth here, just firing it off so this elusive Spellfist can attack for 3 unblockable instead of being completely roadblocked by this Augur. And now we do see the Gush. Shadow Rift, Inside Out, and there's still 1 blue mana available for protection. There's a Dispel, another Dispel from both sides, and now we see, very important, Piracy Charm for +2, -1 on the Tireless Tribe. And there's an important layer thing going on here. So we see Green Prinny just responds by discarding a card and giving the tribe 4 toughness. So now there's a 1/5 tribe. When Piracy Charm resolves, there's a 3/4 tribe. The toughness gets reduced by 1 and the power gets increased by 2. But then the switch happens and it doesn't actually work in Hey Nongman's favor, because then after the switch the 3/4 tribe turns into a 4/3 tribe, because the reducing of the toughness gets switched around with the power toughness switch as well. Because of how layers work, first the +2 -1 of the Piracy Charm is applied, and then after all of that is computed, you get the switch of power and toughness on top of that in a later layer. So the Piracy Charm reducing toughness by 1 doesn't actually stop the Tireless Tribe, even though a Tireless Tribe after the switch would be like a 5/1, a 9/1, a 13/1, and so on. Because the 1 toughness that you're taking away also gets switched, it only reduces the power by 1 and not the toughness. So Piracy Charm unable to kill Tireless Tribe here with the switches going on. Yeah, exactly. You can Piracy Charm your own Tireless Tribe to dodge Electricity as well, because it basically adds 2 toughness after the switch has happened. The 2 power that you're adding turns into 2 toughness. So Hey Nongman seemed to have been unaware of that interaction and cast the Piracy Charm here, fails to kill the tribe, and then Green Prinny comes up with a combo kill here. Basically just losing 1 power to the Piracy Charm and nothing else. So that's an important layer thing to be aware of when you have Piracy Charm in your own deck or anything that reduces toughness. Though it's only specific to Piracy Charm really, because something like this figure would still have the same effect. -2, -2 gets switched around and it's still -2, -2. No, if you let the Inside Out resolve, it's the same effect, because it's always the way that like plus power and minus power gets computed first and then the switch happens. Regardless of the timing of the spells, it will always be the same order in which the layers are applied. So even if you let them switch first and then cast your spell, the switch still happens to the effect of your spell. Basically the same result. So he would have had to like sequence his spells differently, or maybe cast the Piracy Charm on his own turn to get a card out of Green Prinny's hand or something, but there was no way for the Piracy Charm to ever kill the tribe there with the switch happening. So that means that Green Prinny gets the win there in game 1, with the Piracy Charm not having any positive effect. And we go back into game 2, where we might see Green Prinny sideboarding into a slightly more controlling setup here, with the transformation of sideboard available, and Hey Nongman is likely bringing in some hate for the tribe combo with some gut shots or a Journey to Nowhere, maybe the counterspell and dispel as well, and both players with kind of a slow opening here with some tapped lands. The Shadow spell does not give plus power now. None of the spells in Green Prinny's deck give any plus power, though he does have 1 Piracy Charm in his own sideboard to use, so that brings the same interaction. And we see Tireless Tribe here really early, Jessian Thief is supposed to be a blocker, but Green Prinny has the 1 daze out of his deck to counter the Jessian Thief, and there's no inside-out combo here though, just a second Tireless Tribe, applying more pressure and making it so that the combo can be threatened without any evasion giving spell. And Elusive Spellfist is also attempted to get countered here by Circular Logic. Hainong Man counters back with his own daze and gets to keep some mana open during the next turn to stop a potential combo. So now there's 2 tribes, so combo can still be threatened, but there's a lot of interactive mana open on Hainong Man's side. And Green Prinny decides to keep cantripping here. Check out what Hainong Man has in his hand, though we don't get to see it here out of the replay, sadly. No way for me to show what Green Prinny got to see there. And cycles into another island, but no profitable attacks here. I guess I can switch back into full screen. Some pondering happening, looking to improve the hand as well, but this Elusive Spellfist still doesn't want to attack. The trading of damage here doesn't seem that favorable for Hainong Man. Actually doesn't seem that bad either, but now it's much more difficult for Green Prinny to just free roll some attacks with the tribes, and because letting the tribe get blocked actually costs you some card in hand to keep it alive unless you do successfully execute a combo. So that makes a combo attempt a higher investment for Green Prinny, and they are willing to keep sitting back here on their Evolving Wilds, develop their mana, and wait for a moment where Hainong Man blinks and lets their guard down. Delver might finally be able to apply some pressure on the way back. As soon as this transforms, it can start attacking maybe and put pressure on Green Prinny so they don't just get to sculpt their hand freely. Gush offers some new cards, but the floating blue mana isn't used up at all. No cantrips to follow that up, no Augur of Bolas. And these Tireless Tribes are still unwilling to attack into the open mana and blockers. Delver does not transform, so it's kept back on defense, instead of just running it into a tribe that can add some toughness and trade it for a random card in hand. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm not certain what's in the hand. Probably some combo pieces and maybe some Spiral Golem type cards. Definitely some islands. And Hainong Man also seems to have a very reactive hand with probably some Dispels and Piracy Charms, maybe some gut shots, and so on, just not really doing much in terms of proactive development here. This is interesting. Hainong Man decides to just crack the Evolving Wilds. Theoretically, you can hold the Evolving Wilds until your upkeep. Look at the top card with Delver of Secrets and then shuffle afterwards if you don't like it, basically giving yourself a Scry 1. You do have to pay 1 mana for that Scry 1 though, basically, because the island that you have in play untapped now is tapped instead, and that delays your mana development. So sometimes the mana can be worth more, sometimes the scrying can be worth more, so it's something to consider for Hainong Man, and that might have been a useful play to improve the quality of the draw here, with the Delver of Secrets offering a free scry. But Hainong Man decided not to do that and valued the mana development a little bit more highly. Gets punished here by finding another island off of the top of the deck, which does not transform the Delver, and yeah, then also forced to draw that extra island instead of potentially shuffling it away for a better spell. So that might have been a mistake, but it's difficult to tell. If there were a lot of reactive cards in the hand that you wanted to have mana available for, then it can be alright to make that play. The Delver keeps not transforming and hits another Evolving Wilds. So now I think it would be pretty much mandatory to go for that scry trick. When did he cast the Ponder? Like long ago. It might have been a shuffle Ponder as well, so that potentially couldn't have set up the Delver. Also something that I can't really see off of the replay all that easily. Once again, Hainong Man just goes for the Evolving Wild Shuffle there right away instead of setting up the Delver Scry, and I think this time it's definitely a mistake, because there's enough mana available to cast all of the cards in Hainong Man's hand. the reactive cards are all 1 mana or 0 mana cards in Gutshot, Mutagenic Growth, Dispel, Piracy Charm, and so on. So I think giving up on that scry here when clearly flipping this Delver and finding some more pressure are the most important priorities. Seems like a mistake to me to just crack the Evolving Wilds there, and once again punished by not transforming this Delver. Though the transform of the Delver would be unrelated to the Evolving Wilds, of course. You would have to resolve this trigger first and then crack, and that doesn't really accelerate your Delver transform at all. But improving your draw step afterwards still seems worth quite a lot. And seems like the draw step for the turn was Augur of Bolas, which once again did not transform the Delver. And also does not hit a spell here, so Hainong Man's deck not kind to them, not really providing spells. And end of turn Gush Hardcast into Brainstorm. Yeah, definitely there's also Brainstorms in the deck that you can preserve the shuffle for. And we saw Gush plus Brainstorm at end of turn from Green Prinny, neither of which got countered. And then Hainong Man uses this moment where Green Prinny is tapped out to Echoing Truth these Tireless Tribes, afraid of a potential combo, and that sets back the board state a little bit. Does not seem that productive to just Echoing Truth here. That also seems like a kind of a weird play, though you do play around like a combo attempt with Dispel backup here if your own hand is weak. Prinny just gets the second white source and recast both tribes, and they just resolve. So in those cases it seems a little bit wasteful to just Echoing Truth to buy yourself a turn when you could also use the Echoing Truth against the combo attempt to have a truly disruptive spell. So if Hainong Man was super worried about just dying here, I could see it being the play, but it's not really helping them in the long run to now just be down an Echoing Truth and on 4 cards in hand instead of having an Echoing Truth that still disrupts the combo. Yeah, but even just recasting one tribe at a time is going to get Green Prinny into a combo situation again, so I'm not certain that is helping much. If you have like Counterspell in your hand and you're capable of countering the Tireless Tribe on the way back down, I can see it, but here it looked pretty wasteful. Not certain I would have gone for that. Vapor Snack is being revealed to the Delver, so it's finally transforming now and capable of attacking. And that is another way of disrupting the combo on Green Prinny's turn. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are worried about it getting countered then if you wait for the combo turn, but I agree that it could be game winning on a combo turn. So the Delver is beating down. Green Prinny cycles through a Shadow Rift there, also has the third Tireless Tribe on the board now. So yeah, I think I would have also held the Echoing Truth for combo turn. But yeah, we see Green Prinny just cycling through a Shadow Rift. That indicates that there's a Shadow Rift already available in hand, and just wanting to find more protection for a combo. Gitaxian Probe though paying mana for it, so maybe not going for a combo yet this turn, but is checking out the hand to make sure if the way is clear or not. And Dizzy Spell being transmuted, grabs himself a Giga Draws, which can tap down all of Hainong Man's defensive mana, so that Green Prinny only has to worry about gut shots afterwards. So now Hainong Man has to play every turn with the expectation of Giga Draws. Here it's only a tap down for 3, which would be enough to tap down the blockers and potentially the white mana, but doesn't really stop all the blue mana that is available. Another Shadow Rift getting cycled, so pretty aggressively cycling through those indicates that there's many of them still in the deck, or the blockers are going to get tapped down by Giga Draws here. 7 blue mana available for Green Prinny, so, and very aggressive play by Hainong Man, aware of the fact that the board is going to be tapped down pretty soon by 7 copies of Giga Draws. And we see Vapor Snack on, like, these two attack, the Spellfist gets unblockable by this Vapor Snack and trying to Vapor Snack the tribe. Before the combo turn, that resolves, putting green pretty to 8. Second Vapor Snack on the second tribe. Also resolves, putting green pretty to 7. And third Vapor Snack, this is the one that green pretty really has to fight over, because now there's 7 power on the board attacking and the Vapor Snack, making it a lethal attack and taking away the ability to combo on the next turn for green pretty. So this spell tries to counter this Vapor Snack, but there's no capability of blocking anymore. And now this is a lethal attack showing here with 4 and 3 damage, so green pretty has to have some additional responses. And this actually looks like a mistake to me. I've seen this game already while recording it, and we have a 4-3 here and a 3-2. And both of these inside outs on each of these creatures is going to prevent 1 damage. Basically, this turns it into a 2-3 and this turns it into a 3-4. So each of those times the creature is going to deal 1 less damage to make it a 6 damage attack instead of a 7 damage attack. But this one has the potential to still grow. So if you swap the power and toughness on Elusive Spellfist, you're preventing the same amount of damage or more damage if there's more spells being cast. For example, a Daze here from Heinongwen can pump this into a 5 damage attacker and then turn it into a kill, even if you're capable of paying for the Daze. And if you switch here, then you're safe from that. Then you have a Spellfist always dealing 3 damage and a Delver always dealing 3 damage. So that seems like a huge mistake to target the Delver here instead of the Spellfist, unless you're intending to swap both creatures' power and toughness. Yeah, he could do that for sure, especially because the prowess here, like any spell that you cast, is going to be lethal now, regardless of what it is. So now we have 6 damage showing here, and Heinongmen actually does have Piracy Charm here to trigger this, and this would be lethal if you just target your, like, even if you target the Tireless Tribe, it's lethal because then you have 5 and 2 for 7. And if you just give Island Walk, it would be lethal. If you discard a card, it would be lethal. But instead, he targets the Delver Seeker, which is the only target on the entire board that does not work. Huge misplay by Heinongmen, because now the +2 -1 turns into a -1 +2 from the switch already being applied to the Delver. So the same thing that we discussed in the previous game of layers against Piracy Charm, against power and toughness switch, just means that Heinongmen chose the only mode and the only target on the entire board that ended up not being lethal. Because there's 4 targets for this mode, +2 -1, 3 of which end up being lethal. Here it adds power, here it just provides prowess, here it provides prowess, here it doesn't work. And then Island Walk works on 4 different targets, giving them Island Walk is lethal. And then discarding a card out of either player's hand also ends up being lethal, because then it's still 5 + 2. So both games, like, I mean, game 1 might have not been winnable for Heinongmen, even if they correctly played Piracy Charm, but this Piracy Charm is actually out of out of 10 possible ways of casting this Piracy Charm, there was only one that lost him the game, and he did manage to find that 1 out of 10 modes. And also, Green pretty made a mistake that allowed Heinongmen to win here, and did not get punished for it. Yeah, because Heinongmen made an even worse mistake. So this was a pretty atrocious line of play from both players, basically just throwing each other the game in their laps, throwing it away. And yeah, Heinongmen reduces the damage of the Delver by 1 here, turning it into a 1/5 attacker, and then ends up being 1 damage short, putting green pretty to 1 with the help of the Piracy Charm. Also post-combat Ponder now to add another prowess. Yeah, he could counter his own spell, but I know that it resolved because I saw the game, and it just ends up being 1 damage short. here, which is just unbelievably terrible. But Hey Nongman pointed out in the chat, like, hey, I'm still learning. Top 8 is a great spot to learn in, right? Like sarcastically, but yeah, it seems to be like new to the deck and or to Pauper and not yet familiar with all these interactions. But at least after game 1, you could have learned how the piracy charm works and not repeated the same mistake a second time. So, oh, there was also a dispel, though that might have come out of the ponder. Yeah, not beating up on Hey Nongman too hard, because if they are actually a new player, then good for them that they made top 8 and that they're learning out of their mistakes. What still was pretty funny that like out of 10 possible ways of casting it, the only one that doesn't win was found there, and even a veteran Pauper player of like Green Prinny with like many top 8s and playing this deck for a hugely long time with huge success, also messed up on the same turn, even enabling that mistake when basically giving Hey Nongman the win when Green Prinny could have set himself up much better to survive there. So yeah, Giga Draws coming out. There's a Dispel on the Giga Draws to preserve some mana to interact with the combo potentially. Basically the Dispel keeps this one Tranquil Cove untapped. Yeah, definitely still good for Hey Nongman in multiple ways. Shows that they have a winning attitude towards mistakes, like still learning from their mistakes and also making top 8, so both of those are nice. Another Dispel coming out, so that means there was at least one Dispel in the hand as well that could have countered the Piracy Charm and still turned into a win by giving another power and stopping the Delver from becoming smaller. So definitely many ways in which Hey Nongman threw away the kill there. Trying to fight against the Shadow Rift here, but Green Prinny has the the circular logic, just a ton of cards in hand here, and very easy to beat a tapped out opponent with the combo here. Yeah, let's not talk about that, but I agree. Not a big fan of Green Prinny's ghosting, but it's not really the topic to discuss here, I think. Well, keeping the Augur back definitely makes some sense, because it keeps your opponent honest that they have to use a Shadow spell for the combo on the way back. But yeah, it would have also ended up being lethal potentially. So yeah, definitely Hey Nongman had like 5 different ways to come up with lethal there and failed to do so. And now Green Prinny assembles a combo against the Giga Drawed out opponent. And if there's no gut shot available, there's no way for Hey Nongman to interact with this at all. And yeah, Hey Nongman does not have the gut shot, so the game ends and Green Prinny wins after both players tried desperately to throw the game away. So third quarterfinals, we have Brevenix against Rockstar Lifestyle. So let's pause this video for a second and look at the deck lists. So Rockstar Lifestyle, actually mono blue Delver with 2 Augur of Boluses and 0 Spire Golems in the main deck. Very cantrip heavy, 3 Mutagenic Growth, only 2 Gush, and 18 lands. There's a lot of variability in these mono blue Delver decks, actually. Also 4 Snap and 0 Vapor Snack, so valuing the more clunky but then after resolving free bounce spell over the cheaper option of Vapor Snack that you can easier like fit into a turn a lot easier, especially when you're tapping out for your own creature like a Spellstutter Sprite and leaving only 1 mana available afterwards. Then you can still Vapor Snack your own creature afterwards with the 1 mana that is available. But aggressively Snap can be a lot better, like removing your opponent's blocker and basically spending 0 mana on it is a nice tempo swing. And 3 days is available here, 3 Mutagenic Growth, so some number of free spells, and this is also free spells, so really valuing being highly aggressive and utilizing free spells, and not really suited towards the late game with no Spire Golems in the main deck and only 2 Augurs, so really aggressively trying to build a board and then ninja your opponent, and then keep snowballing off of the ninja with these free spells, keeping blockers out of the way and enabling more attacks. Yeah, I guess so. There's not that many cantrips when there's no brainstorm available. Also, 2 Gush I think is like one less than they usually play. I think blue-red often plays 2 Gush and mono-blue often plays 3. Yeah, but like definitely light on Spiral Golems, definitely a little bit light on Counter Magic with no extra Deprive and no Logic Knot or anything, though extra dazes to make up for it. So this list is really valuing free spells and being the aggressor with Ninja. We also saw some lists issuing Ninja in the previous weeks, and this is back to like a fully committed Ninja style. And then the sideboard is built in a very similar way, about as cheap as it can get. 4 Hydroblast, super efficient. 4 Gutshot is much more than most people have. 3 Annals. The Bone Splitters can allow your creatures to keep attacking through blockers and make a threat out of some of these 1/1s. So really about as aggressive as you can build this. And then there's some Spiral Golems here. Yeah, that is definitely true. The more Gushes you play, the worse Spiral Golem gets, and the less Gushes you play, the better it is, because you have more islands in play. So cutting down on Spiral Golems while also cutting down on Gush seems a little bit non-synergistic. But definitely this deck just wants to be highly aggressive, so I could see why the Spiral Golems, which are more like a 3 or 4 drop, are passed up on. Like you play them for 1 or 2 mana, but around turn 4 or turn 5. So this deck wants to already have a dominating board position by that point. So facing off against Brevenix though, who is also mono blue diver, but a different build. Well, some similarities, but this is actually even lighter on cantrips because 2 of these ponders are replaced with 2 Gataxian probes, so the same amount of sorcery speed cantripping, but less selection, but even cheaper because you can cast these for 0 mana. 1 less daze, but replacing the daze with a deprive. Also 2 gush, 1 less mutagenic growth, and playing a split between these snaps and vapor snacks. So also 4 copies total of bounce spells, but more variability there. And 1 flare husk as replacing the 3rd mutagenic growth as another way to push through blockers. But we also see 16 lands here instead of 18, so like a lot lower on the land count for Brevenix, but also going up on the expensive card, so that also seems slightly anti-synergistic. Because there's 1 extra Augur and 1 extra Spiral Golem, but 2 less lands. So more expensive cards with fewer lands seems like a little bit of a weird setup. Also 1 extra Deprive over the days, so on the lower land count, Brevenix is trying to cast more 2 mana counters instead of 0 mana counters. They're like both of these lists seem like they're like an okay setup, but they don't really feel fully synergistic. They make some choices here and some choices there, and those choices don't seem to match up with each other. For example, we see Brevenix's sideboard have a lot more expensive cards. Actually, like more Spiral Golems and Stormbound Geists. Rockstar Lifestyle actually had 0 Stormbound Geists on 18 lands, and here Brevenix is trying to cast 3 drops with 16 lands, so an extra Augur in the sideboard as well, so pretty greedy choices here. Psychic Barrier as well as Zephyr Sprite. I mean, I guess it blocks in the mirror. It's like another 1 mana 1/1 flyer that keeps the fairy count high and can block as a flyer, but it doesn't really seem like a very impactful sideboard card to have, so this sideboard doesn't make a lot of sense to me, both individually and in comparison to the main deck. Yeah, but Brevenix is also very low on cantrips to find extra land. There's not much selection out of these cantrips, and on 16 lands you also can't really afford to always spend the mana on cantrips to make all your land drops, because then you're like tapped out every turn just trying to cast these. What is Sprite for? I'm not sure. I mean, it can block opposing flyers. I assume it's for the mirror, and just to maybe keep the threat count high if you're like cutting these vapor snacks and snaps and you want to have more pressure, then it's a cheap way of applying pressure. But yeah, I'm not certain why you would put Zephyr Sprite into your sideboard as a sideboard card, how that is better than like a gut shot or something similar to deal with your opponent's fairy. It does have some proactive capabilities, of course, enables ninja and so on, but seems like a weird sideboard card. Whatever, both of the lists look a little bit weird, and we will see how they play out against each other. It's not even clear like one of them is the beatdown and one is the control, because usually the higher land count deck would be the more controlling deck, trying to outgrind with higher value cards, but actually the lower land count deck here has the higher value cards, so Brevenix is the one that has more value to work with and more late game, even though he's on the lower land count. So Rockstar Lifestyle on the play though, turn 1 Delver, followed up with turn 1 Miscreant. Guess I can slightly speed this up again after discussing all these intricate piracy charm plays. Counterspell being revealed, the Delver transforms right away. And we see Ninja coming down on turn 2, which can be quite the tempo loss if it gets bounced. But it does dodge counter magic here into the open mana by Rockstar Lifestyle, who might have Spellstutter, Sprite, or Counterspell available and now gets punished for keeping those open. We'll see if there's a bounce spell available. Rockstar Lifestyle on the 4 snaps, but unable to bounce the ninja, so Brevenix does get the card draw here and avoids the tempo loss of having both the turn 1 and turn 2 play bounced simultaneously. But Orgraf Bolas is coming down to potentially outclass this ninja and provide a good blocker. Revealing Gush, taps out for Preordain, though Brevenix unlikely to be interested in dazing that regardless. The ninja does attack into the Augur, and we see Mutagenic Growth to get it off of the board. And double Fairy Miscreant follow up, drawing him some cards, and Preordain also resolves, so both players didn't want to daze their opponent's cantrips or didn't have a daze available. Delver of Secrets attacks into these miscreants and there's no double block, which is interesting after Rockstar Lifestyle had already indicated that there's no bounce spell for the ninja, so only Mutagenic Growth would have really led to that backfiring. So I could see a double block actually being reasonable there, but it kind of depends on what Brevenix has in hand. And Gush into Ponder shows Rockstar Lifestyle a ton of new cards. And there's the snap finally found off of all these cantrips, dealing with the ninja for the time being, but not impossible to redeploy it. And only one miscreant, making it so that the 2 miscreants can attack back and potentially enable the ninja on the way back over. Also, Rockstar Lifestyle now on a much lower amount of mana to work with, so that turn actually didn't end up working out that well for Rockstar and helped Brevenix get control over the board a little bit again, though still taking a ton of damage from this Delver. And running out Augur here into a counterspell, trying to daze to make it resolve, and that works, though the Augur still doesn't contest the Delver of Secrets on the other side. Yeah, holding back Delver there was definitely reasonable, both because the double block was not all that favorable and because it stops the miscreants from being bounced again and enabling another ninja, though the amount of damage that Rockstar Lifestyle is dealing here is definitely adding up. But if you're like getting crushed in the value game and then coming up a little bit short at the end, it can be problematic. Here the Augur is bounced again and the ninja comes down, so Brevenix definitely in full control of this value game, because Rockstar Lifestyle valued face damage here over value. And the Augur comes down again, though Brevenix is now at 3 life basically from the Delver attack. Reveals the Preordain, so basically Brevenix crushing in the value game here after having multiple ninja hits, multiple reusages of Augur and Miscreant and so on, but close to being dead. Attacks once again. So basically it will come down to whether this Delver can deal the last hit or not, and if it doesn't, the game ends in Brevenix's favor, and if it does, the game ends in Rockstar Lifestyle's favor. Counterspell to try and force the Spire Golem through, another counterspell to stop it, and Mutagenic Growth, Gitaxian Probe to check out the hand, and draws into a land drop and Miscreant here. So Jump Blocker available for the Delver. Brevenix on 1 life, still holding on for dear life. Gets another card draw off of the Ninja. Gush gets another 3 draws. Augur of Bolas comes down, revealing Vapor Snack, which might keep Brevenix alive for another turn. Miscreant, Preordain, so another flying blocker available. Discarding to hand size here, actually showing how much value Brevenix was willing or capable of creating, and successfully bounces this Delver, which is quite surprising. But still holding on 1 life. Hardcast Ninja putting another lethal attacker onto the board. Flare Husk another blocker on the ground. This Ninja has like no way of ever connecting on the ground. And the Flare Husk actually gets re-equipped to the Ninja so it can attack freely and get an extra draw in. Augur coming down, Brevenix willing to counterspell that and open himself up to a snap. Oh no, the Delver still didn't transform, so there's not even any threat of a kill there. No flying blockers are necessary, so pretty comfortable position for Brevenix now. Actually, despite being at 1 life, the board position is just dominating, and an extra Gush. Preordain looks at more cards, now 0 cards in hand for Rockstar Lifestyle and 7 cards in hand for Brevenix, so we see the card advantage that was created finally paying off for Brevenix. Yeah, definitely decent counter. It's 0 cards, so you have to counter it for sure. And now there have to be blocks on this Ninja. Just jump blocking to set up a potential win with the Delver, transform the Delver with a bounce spell, and then bounce the Miscreant, though you're facing down 7 cards in hand, so unlikely for that to end up working out. And yeah, Brevenix still with 7 cards in hand here, attacking for lethal, and the card advantage barely manages to work out, so it did play out quite a lot like an aggressive deck versus a controlling deck, though Brevenix accumulated his card advantage through counter aggression with Ninja and Augur. But yeah, in the end the card advantage barely came out on top, and the Delver was very close to just winning the game there. Maybe the Gitaxian Probe was actually necessary to find a 1 mana flying blocker there, so that was a pretty tight one for Brevenix, and pretty lucky to come out of that alive. And let's go to game 2. But very interesting dynamic of both players approaching it very differently and being forced by their draw into making either a very value oriented approach or a very aggressive approach. So now we have Brevenix on top and Rockstar Lifestyle on the bottom here. I can switch back into full screen. And both just cantripping on turn 1 instead of applying early pressure. More cantrips, still no pressure from either side. And Brevenix opens up with the first threat here with the Augur of Bolas, which Brevenix definitely has more copies of. Reveals counterspell. Somewhere between 3 copies in the main deck and the 4th copy out of the sideboard. So Brevenix, if they want to have access to Augur of Bolas, they definitely do, while Rockstar Lifestyle only has 2 of them in their deck list. Augur of Bolas attacking into the Delver, but no Ninja follow-up. Definitely never blocking there with your Delver of Secrets, but the Ninja would have been slightly uncomfortable for Lifestyle, and fails to transform the Delver, then decides to Ninja it back to the hand, because the 1/1 attacking was not particularly useful, and gets card advantage going this time. There's a counterspell that Rockstar Lifestyle knew about, so unwilling to run out the Delver of Secrets here into it, and keeping the own counter magic open. But end of turn spell starter, very aggressive play by Brevenix here and completely changing the dynamic from game 1, where Brevenix was the controlling and very much leaning towards card advantage over tempo, and here very willing to just run out spell starter as a 1/1 flyer, potentially combining it with Ninja, though Ninja seems pretty unlikely after the Augur wasn't bounced last turn, so I'm not certain if that spellstar was just supposed to be like a 1/1 flyer with no real other upside, or if Brevenix just like was setting up for a potential top deck Ninja, though it ends up with the spellstar getting gut shotted down, so we don't really get to find out what the plan was for Brevenix there. Maybe there was a second spellstar in hand and the fairy count was supposed to be increased. Augur holding back the Ninja now. Once again. And this time we don't see mutagenic growth, but we see another gut shot to potentially get it off of the board. There's the second spellstar, so that makes a lot of sense that Brevenix wanted the first one on the board, but counterspell stops the spellstar. And Spiral Golem coming down, so pretty dominating board position now for Rockstar Lifestyle, and we see the Zephyr Sprite sideboard card showing up. Very miscreant follow-up, very miscreant getting counterspelled here actually to keep the board a little bit lower. And wait, that was also interesting. The Ninja attacks into the Flavor Husk and the Germ token, jump blocking, but unwilling to double block with the Zephyr Sprite to potentially get the Ninja off of the board, just taking the jump block and keeping the flyer on the board so that you can potentially re-equip to it or something to contest the Ninja, but it seems pretty expensive. Also might have considered a double block there so that you're not facing down a Ninja. And actually Brevenix does not really worry about that. Attacks with the Zephyr Sprite and gets the own Ninja down onto the board here. Facing down 4 creatures though, 2 of which are Delver Secret, so pretty scary spot to be in. And the Ninja draw finds apparently nothing because it's just the Zephyr Sprite being redeployed. And these Delvers don't transform. Though Rockstar Lifestyle is willing to attack with them into the Zephyr Sprite here, but holding the Spiral Golem back to stop themselves from being hit by a Ninja on the way back. Zephyr Sprite trades up for a Delver, so actually did a pretty great job here, though that was fortunate in both the aggressive and the defensive regard, that the Delvers didn't transform and completely outclass the Zephyr Sprite. So Delver once again does not transform. Third Delver as a follow-up, gets counterspelled. No counter back from Rockstar Lifestyle, and still unwilling to attack with the Spiral Golem because the blocker is necessary, and unwilling to attack with the Ninja because the equipment wielding Ninja is just outclassing it. Delver of Secrets attempted, spell stutter, counter spell stops the spell stutter, so now both players have a Delver on the board. And Brevenix actually manages to fight back into this game and back onto this board, with the equipment on the Ninja playing a huge role here, because that makes it both more difficult to play defense against the Ninja and more difficult to attack into it. So Flare Husk actually pretty important part of the puzzle here, both increasing the aggressive and defensive potential of the Ninja. And once again Rockstar Lifestyle decides that he values damage potential over card advantage, lets this Ninja hit here. Just pretty aggressive just to get the Spiral Golem attack in. I think I dislike that play pretty heavily, and that allows Brevenix to chain into Gush, into Preordain, another Delver. And the Delver gets equipped, though the equipment here isn't really relevant, just leads to Delver of Secrets trading off against each other. But yeah, that Ninja hit that was allowed there actually helped Brevenix quite a bit, and Rockstar Lifestyle's focus on face damage over value just seems to backfire every game, even though it came close to winning game 1. You will see Ponder here getting spell stuttered, and Brevenix just crushing the value game now. Delver of Secrets transforms. So the Delver of Secrets being traded off against the Zephyr Sprite was pretty terrible in hindsight. Letting this Ninja hit you instead of keeping Spiral Golem back on defense, pretty terrible and backfiring. Just many plays that Rockstar Lifestyle made that were too aggressive and ended up giving Brevenix a huge advantage in the long run. by spewing off value, and then you end up in a position where Brevenix just has a lot more material to work with. Here's a defensive spell so that doesn't generate any value, just trying to double block this ninja. Flare Husk just dominating the board here once again. Basically killed a 1-1 spell starter that turn and kept the other 1-1 spell starter on Brevenix's side of the board alive because it couldn't get blocked. Delver resolves because it doesn't interact with the flyers, and the Spiral Golem gets countered. So now Rockstar Lifestyle is facing down 2 lethal attackers, and the game has ended. Brevenix wins it with just generating more advantage every turn, more card advantage, and then comes up with more material in the long run. So pretty certain that Rockstar Lifestyle could have played that a little bit more value oriented and a little bit more cautiously in many spots, though the Flare Husk definitely put them into a weird spot because the Spiral Golem was no longer able to hold off opposing Delver of Secrets when they Delver attacks as a 4-3. But that made it even more important to have Delver of Secrets of your own and not just trade them off against a random Zephyr Sprite. So too aggressive and not focused enough on card advantage just backfired on Rockstar Lifestyle pretty hard. And that way Brevenix wins. So we have the 4th quarterfinals here, which is Chira Lane against Dissonance. And we see Chira Lane on Stompy, pretty much a standard list. The only really interesting inclusion here is the River Boas in the main deck to hate on all the Delver decks, and also a reasonable card against Boros actually, even though the Island Walk doesn't matter. Having a regenerating creature to carry your Rancors and Elephant Guides and Hunger of the Halpex is actually pretty strong. Thank you for your follow, lock it up. So River Boar, interesting inclusion here, and a pretty streamlined sideboard. Nothing really out of the ordinary here, and we see Dissonance on pretty much the same deck. Basically a 75 card mirror, right? River Boa, Solana, Walker, Wall Scourge. Yeah, I think they're just playing the exact same list, which Dissonance has performed well with over many tournaments. And Dissonance, one of the faces of Stompy in Pauper, basically known for this deck and his expertise of this deck, constantly being the only one who really performs with Stompy when other people fail to do well with it. And Chira Lane also pretty strong player. I think he was Welsh national captain last year, so pretty strong player in general, though I rarely see him partaking in Pauper tournaments. So showed up here, maybe got the list from Dissonance or just copied it from a previous week where Dissonance played this list, and they show up with the 75 card mirror of the Stompy on Stompy match. Yeah, it's possible that it was Dissonance list from last week, or they communicated about the list, either one of those two, but they're definitely playing the exact same list. And let's go. Dissonance gets to be on the play here in game 1, though mulligans to 5, which is a bad sign in the matchup where both players are throwing pretty low powered material at each other, and any extra card is going to be incredibly important. Turn 1 Scarven Pit Skulk, not the optimal turn 1 play either, and there's not even a second Scarven Pit Skulk to follow it up to make the Bloodthirst that you're getting in all that important, though it is a good target for any power and toughness increasing or any power increasing effect, so that you basically build yourself a nice little unblockable creature. And Chira Lane has the aggressive triple Burning Tree Emissary draw here with the River War follow up. So basically exactly the opening that we saw out of the red deck wins, to completely flood the board and have huge damage potential starting from turn 3. And we see here Dissonance putting Elephant Guide on the Scarven Pit Skulk here, and also sacrificing the Eldrazi spawn, which is interesting. So that indicates that there's a green spell still available, either Hunger of the Halpeg to go with the Morbid trigger off of the Eldrazi spawn here, or Alliance of the Westwood. And Nest Invader being triple blocked to trade it down with these Burning Tree Emissaries, because Shira Lane is aware that this is going to be unblockable for the rest of the game and going to deal 4 damage unblockably every turn, so wants to keep the damage potential a little bit lower and then start racing with his own Rancor, but the Rancor gets stopped by the Vines of the Westwood. That was expected out of that. Kept open green mana. Though giving up on the Eldrazi spawn definitely has a cost attached to it as well, because then there's no blockers here to at least hold off these 2/2s for a single turn and gain some life. Dissonance has nothing else to do rather than try to keep racing, though it's not a great racing position here, facing down a ton more power. And Vines of the Westwood makes this Skagan Pit Skull stronger and therefore unblockable. And yeah, pretty hopeless position here for Dissonance, just way too slow against the multiple Burning Tree Emissaries, flooding the board too quickly and therefore winning the race. So unfortunate for Dissonant, but just gets ran over in the mirror. Even though they were on the play, the Burning Tree Emissaries just created too much of a tempo advantage there. 0 mana 2/2s, pretty strong in a matchup that is filled with only 2/2s and 1/1s. So Dissonance once again gets to be on the play. This time Shira Lane is mulliganing. Actually, they both mulligan. Wait. Oh yeah, Dissonance mulligan to 5 and Shira Lane mulligan to 6. So not that fortunate for Dissonance in this matchup. Just 2 mulligans to 5, making it very difficult to win in this material fight of Stompy on Stompy. Netta Sentinel at least a better 2-drop to work with, and Riverboar as the follow-up. Quirion Ranger carrying a Rancor is a pretty weak follow-up there, though it does a reasonable job of racing, and we see why that was chosen. They really wanted to get a +1/+1 counter on this Pit Skulk here. Though this time Dissonance is slightly ahead in the race and manages to build a pretty big board here by following up with a second Riverboar as well. Second Rancor, so now this Pit Skulk is pretty much unblockable, and 7 damage being dealt here. Followed up with another Pit Skulk, so pretty dangerous and pretty close racing situation both ways. Now finally trading off this Quirion Ranger, but gets the Rancor back to the hand. We see Hunger of the Howpact here to make a 5-power Riverboar, which could potentially block these Skagan Pit Skulk, so that's a threatening defensive creature with regeneration, but we see the Rancor that we knew was in hand just coming down on the 4-power Pit Skulk to turn it into a 6-power and basically make it unblockable again in the face of the Riverboar. So Dissonance would now need another pump spell to turn it into a blocker and then completely blow out Shira Lane, but there's no such pump spell available. So just taking 6 damage, and then Rancor does make the Riverboar bigger again. And the fact that Quirion Ranger can untap the Riverboar means that it can still attack. There was a chump block necessary here, untapping the Riverboar, but Hunger of the Howpact turns the Skagan's Pit Skulk into a 9-power creature, making it once again unblockable and allowing it to attack for the win. Yeah, the Quirion Ranger block definitely cut off the mana, but I think it was important to get the Rancor back to hand, because there were 2 Pit Skulks available already, so putting a Rancor on each of them and having them both attack for 4 was a good play, and then also we saw that stacking up both Rancors on the same creature, attacking for 6 with it unblockably, was also pretty important after Dissonance made a huge blocker. Oh, on turn 2. Yeah, that's difficult to say, kind of depends on Shira Lane's hand there, whether the attack was correct, but I think enabling the Bloodthirst was actually important, and trading off Quirion Ranger for any of your opponent's creatures while also enabling the Bloodthirst looks okay. So let's see if we can go there on turn 2. There's definitely some downside to trading off Quirion Ranger in such a low land count deck, but like both of the creatures on the opposing side were better than the Quirion Ranger and you unlock a Rancor, and you get Bloodthirst in. So if you're trading for Riverboar, I think you're very happy about that. If you're trading for Nether Sentinel, it's probably still alright for you. And we knew that Shira Lane had at least another land drop in hand, maybe even two. So it seems alright here, considering that you're enabling Pitskulk. I guess there was no other land, just the land being bounced. So definitely a little bit of a risky play on a one-lander. But assuming you trade for Nether Sentinel, then you have a Skargan Pitskulk as a 2-2 on the board still, because you trample over, and a Rancor in hand, so I think that's still a fine position. But yeah, definitely if Dissonance just calls the bluff there and trades off the Quirion Ranger, it could backfire for Shira Lane. It's one of those spots where you just assume your opponent is unwilling to accept the trade there, and then you get an advantage out of the free wall attack. With hindsight, it could actually have been better for Dissonance to have made the block. Then Shira Lane would have been stranded on one land here. Could have still untapped the land by bouncing it and then have this on the board and put Rancor on it, which wasn't awful for Shira Lane, but I think the spot for Dissonance would have definitely been better after the trade. Though it makes some sense that Dissonance is also unwilling to make too many trades when already behind in terms of mulliganing, and just trying to abuse the fact that these creatures can both play offense and defense by being untapped all the time. Like Riverboars can freely attack into the board and then be untapped by the Quirion Ranger and also offer great blockers. So it makes a lot of sense that you don't want to trade off creatures when the Riverboars are just going to outclass this creature pretty soon. It's a close call. Kinda depends on what both players have in their hand at the time, and a little bit of bluffing and metagaming going on there as well. I think with hindsight it would have worked out better for Dissonance to block, and that made it a little bit risky for Shira Lane to attack. Yeah, definitely. If you're low on material, you just want to close out the game quickly instead of trading off resources. But they did both mulligan. It was like mulligan to 6 on the play. No, just mulligan to 6 on the draw against mulligan to 5 on the play. Yeah, but he bounced the land turn 1, so he definitely didn't have a land turn 1, a second one. Just drew into some more lands later on. Or you mean Dissonance played a third land? That's also possible. Yeah, Dissonance definitely played a third land. Yeah, if there's a land drop, it can just backfire pretty hard that you trade. Like if they just go like you trade off and they go land drop 2 drop or something, then it's pretty bad for you to have traded. Oh, I'm not sure. Definitely close call. Okay, let's move on to the semifinals. And we have Brevenix against HJ Kaiser, so blue-red Delver against mono-blue Delver, as we had discussed earlier. And mono-blue Delver on the play here. Leading on Preordain. And I guess I can slow it down a little bit again. Fairy Miscreant turn 1. Aura does not block the Miscreant, so there's Ninja potential available now. Counter spell being revealed off of the Augur. And red source as the second land is a little bit of a sign of weakness, so there's no counter spells available now. But the Ninja does come down and takes advantage of the window of weakness there by Brevenix, where no bounce spell was available. And fighting Ninjas with the mono blue deck is a lot harder than for the blue red deck, because they can't literally be killed. Though Augur of Bolas ×2 here holds off the Ninja attacks pretty nicely, reveals another Gush, so Brevenix already doing well in the card advantage battle, or at least keeping up with HJ Kaiser in the card advantage battle, because the Ninja has also generated some advantage. Brainstorming, finding a second blue source here and replaying the Miscreant that we knew about, though not dealing with any of the Augurs there with the red mana that was available. Spiral Golem comes down as the one of Spiral Golem, I think, out of the main deck from Brevenix. And there's Scrat on it after fetching the fourth land to make it a 4 damage burn spell and a second ninja, so this Fairy Miscreant already did quite a good job enabling all these ninjas, though the ninjas on the board are now just staring down augurs and not really doing much. And even, well, this is going a little bit too quickly. Even seeing that there's no replay of the Fairy Miscreant, that's pretty interesting. So I assume that means Counterspell plus Spellstutter Sprite or something similar, because we know there's a Fairy Miscreant in hand for sure, and it wasn't replayed, maybe playing around opposing Spellstutters as well, by holding onto it for a while. And we see Lightning Bolt at end of turn, picking a fight there out of HJ Kaiser. Spellstutter wants to stop that from happening. Counterspell on the Spellstutter, but HJ Kaiser loses that battle at end of turn here against another Counterspell, so just running this Lightning Bolt into the Spellstutter. So now really has to take advantage of this turn while Brevenix is tapped low, otherwise this was kind of a waste of a Lightning Bolt. Double Miscreant, already something nice to resolve, and Augur Bowlers, but still doesn't follow up with spells that allow these ninjas to attack. They're still just sitting on the board, helping HJ Kaiser go wide on the board, but still not profitably attacking. Was kind of a mediocre turn cycle there for HJ Kaiser, though some card advantage was gained while Brevenix was tapped out. Gush there, refilling the hand, and actually choosing to snap the Augur of Bolas instead of snapping any of the opposing creatures. That makes a lot of sense if the board is already this stalled out. Just turning your otherwise useless snaps into some new spells. Though I think the Augur missed there actually, so that backfired on Brevenix. Once again we see Scrat willingly being cast into open mana. Counterspell tries to stop that from happening so that these ninjas can't profitably attack, and this time HJ Kaiser gets the value Spellstutter and a pretty huge blowout, because Brevenix is unlimited amount of mana to interact and therefore can't stop this Spellstutter from resolving. And HJ Kaiser now with a huge attack. The ninja gets double blocked and traded off, but there's 5 damage coming through and an extra card for HJ Kaiser, so just dominating position here. And Brevenix will have huge trouble catching up to this. Brainstorm with a fetch land available as well. So nice little value Brainstorm to take advantage of the new cards that were being drawn off of the ninja and filter into a better hand. Delver comes down, but kind of a pathetic blocker. Not really doing well here on defense until it transforms, and Brevenix likely doesn't have that much time. Second red source being fetched, indicating that there's multiple red removal spells available here to get these blockers out of the way. Miscreant also giving some new card flow. Scrat attempts to take down the Augur. Deprived tries to counter it. And that resolves, though the board position of HJ Kaiser is still dominating here. And the Delver is even unwilling to make any blocks because it needs to transform to turn into a reasonable blocker. But another ninja comes down, so HJ Kaiser still gets a new card and some more board position and value. Preordain and Ponder look for some answers, but there's nothing in Brevenix's deck that can really save this kind of situation, and they concede. So HJ Kaiser up a game there with blue-red Delver over mono-blue Delver, just killing all the relevant threats, getting a bunch of ninja hits in and snowballing from there. And Brevenix never got any ninja action going, just trying to generate card advantage with Gushes, but therefore ended up falling behind on the board and on lands. Brevenix mulliganing to 5 here, and HJ Kaiser also mulliganing to 5, so kind of a low resource battle on both sides. Fairy Miscreant against Augur once again, so that allows H-J Kaiser to maybe get in the ninja hit, though the Augur that already generates some card advantage to potentially recover from this mulligan. Okay, the Miscreant gets the hit in, but no ninja to go with it. Spiral Golem is a nice little blocker here. Brevenix probably misplayed that. I think I would threaten the Augur attack there first to make H-J Kaiser afraid of a ninja, and then maybe they fight over the Augur at the beginning of combat to stop a ninja from coming down, though if you have a lightning bolt in hand you could also just let the ninja come down and then bolt it after. But it seems weird to run out Spiral Golem before making an attack, so that you don't keep H-J Kaiser guessing there. Though the Spiral Golem does a decent job of stabilizing the board here, and H-J Kaiser has no attacks and no follow-up creature. Still needs to build up a higher land count to be able to scratch down this Spiral Golem. Ponder being ran out, and Spellstutter actually does successfully counter that, so that's a huge blowout in H-J Kaiser's favor. Yeah, F6 value. I like F6 value. Maybe I agree then. Augur Bowlers attacks but no ninja on either side. Second Miscreant, so no Spellstutter on Brevenix's side either, not being able to stop this Miscreant, so H-J Kaiser just managed to generate more value here with the Miscreants and the Spellstutter against the one Augur getting an extra card, so both players still on kind of suboptimal hands and trying to fight out of their mulligan, slowly recovering from it. Second red source is very interesting though, probably indicating Pyroblast, so that you can cast a red removal spell and then protect it with Pyroblast. And we see Spellstutter on Spellstutter here, which is amazing for H-J Kaiser. If it does happen and the mono blue deck doesn't have any comeback mechanic for a board like this, no Electricity or something available to them, which would be available to H-J Kaiser, who passes back the turn, not using that red mana yet. Probably still the Pyroblast that we assumed was available in the hand, and now a Gush. Follows it up with Stormbound Geist, even keeping two red sources available, which is quite interesting. Spellstutter on Spellstutter action, yeah. Not countering any of these cantrips. So Brevenix gets to see a ton of new cards, but is still not generating any advantage. And 5 land drops is not really where the mono blue deck wants to be. Really wants to have access to some Gush as well, to turn some of these lands back into more card advantage. H-J Kaiser once again gets a value Brainstorm here, really does a good job of making sure these Brainstorms generate full value. And we see Scrat on the, and there's the Pyroblast that we had expected, so Brevenix comes up with a Dazed though to stop this from happening, so the Spiral Golem does get returned to hand instead of being destroyed, though Brevenix is very far behind on the board now and all these flyers can start attacking. Even unwilling to trade off the Miscreant, which makes a lot of sense to enable top decks of Miscreants like this to still draw a card, but also leads to some additional damage coming in. And the Miscreant is even attacking, that seems a little bit ambitious to not start trading off these flyers, though presumably the Spiral Golem just holds off opposing flyers, but that is something that can backfire pretty easily, though it does work for Brevenix here, so the extra damage being squeezed in actually does not turn out to be any downside. And another Scrat takes out the Spiral Golem this turn after no answer being available last turn. Then Electricity takes out all these Miscreants and the Flying Army comes in for 6 damage. And Brevenix throws in the towel once again, knowing that there's no way to come back from such a lost board position in the mono blue deck. No Electricity type board wipe available. And we see the second semifinals, which was actually a matchup that was discussed quite a bit in the Discord, whether it is favorable to like which side it is favorable for. We see here Tireless Tribe against Mono Green Stumpy, and even the Tireless Tribe pilots were uncertain. Maybe not uncertain, but they had differing opinions on who this matchup favors. Yeah, Brevenix definitely missed several Augur hits. I think like 2 or 3 at least. Though that is part of the risk in your like 18 land 20 creature deck. There's not that many hits. So if you don't set up your Augurs with Brainstorms and Ponders and all that, you are going to miss quite a lot. If you're taking part in the tournament, you get access to the replays. So I can rewind like a tiny bit to show you. Let's see. Okay, wait. So here, this is the tournament on Sunday. And because I was playing, like, you can look at this grid every time, but this replay game button is only available if you were partaking in the tournament as well, because they don't want people to send in like bots or anything and like data mine this entire tournament of like, what is it, like 7 rounds and 35 or something matches each. So these like few hundred games that were being played, you could like data mine them with a bot, and then all the data would be available. So they want only people who actually played in the tournament to be able to see this. But then, like, as long as the tournament is still available, you can click on this and look at the games. And then I recorded this on Sunday evening because the tournament goes away within 24 hours. So I didn't want to do this whole cast on Sunday or in Sunday night, because I played in the tournament myself and was kind of exhausted, but I made sure to have this recording available so I can commentate on it later. Yeah, exactly. You can pick any of these matches of all of the rounds and the top 8, and then pick what you want to see, and I did that for only the top 8 matches, so these 7 matches here, and then recorded it the same way that I would record a stream on my OBS, did like an offline stream and like build up this footage, and then now I'm using the footage to do the commentary on it. So let's jump into the second semifinals. And as I was saying, some players on the Tireless Tribe side said it's Tireless Tribe favorite, and Green Prinny actually said it's one of their more difficult matchups because Stumpy provides a fast clock, and then Vines of the Vespot can also disrupt the combo, so you're under threat of being killed pretty quickly. You don't have that much time to set up, but you also need to fight through some disruption, and there's some blockers on the board as well. Volt Scourge can sometimes be like a life-linking creature that can get Stumpy out of range, so you even need a higher card count there. Just a bunch of different angles of attack that Stumpy has, and mostly a very fast clock that forces the tribe opponent to come up with a combo around turn 3 or turn 4, sometimes turn 5 with an Augur playing defense. But having white mana, a tribe, and all the combo pieces, and like 1 Dispel backup available all by turn 5 is a pretty difficult task for the tribe deck, and puts a lot of pressure on all the cantrips doing exactly the right thing. So it's pretty close matchup actually, even though Stumpy has a low amount of disruption. And then after sideboarding, there's also additional gut shots coming in, making it even more difficult to come up with a combo. Yeah, you need turn 3 tribe at the latest, and then turn 4 you need all the combo pieces basically. So that's a lot to ask off of a mana base that only has like 2 untapped white sources and then like 2 Ash Barrens to find them. Your evolving wilds on turn 3 are even too slow most of the time, so yeah, definitely a pretty close matchup, and it's uncertain which side is actually favored, and people seem to be disagreeing on that, though it comes down a little bit as well to how you configure your tribe deck. So if you have more Augur Warless, that definitely helps. If you have some Seeker of the Way, that can help. So let's see what is chat saying before I jump into this. Yeah, I think the Augur could have attacked, I actually agree. You would trade Augur against the flying 1/1 because your opponent could triple block down the Augur, but it seemed pretty favorable there because the flying creatures had to get under control at some point. Still kind of close, like trading Augur for a 1/1 is kind of a wash, whether you do that or not, and it kind of depends on what follow-up draws are available there, whether you want to do that or not. It is definitely a close decision, I agree. Yeah, I figured out what you were talking about, and I actually thought about it as well, that it might have been okay for the Augur to trade for a 1/1 flyer there, because the flyers were kind of getting out of control. Okay, I'll jump into this second semifinals here now, and we focus on Tribe against Stumpy. Stumpy on the bottom here. Tribe opens up on Gitaxian Probe, so full information. Once again, this information is not available to us, but it is available to the players now. And Netto Sentinel, pretty much the best opening on turn 1 for this deck, though Vault Scourge can sometimes be threatening as well if you put a bunch of Rankers on it. And Green Prinny did do a lot of cantripping here and has access to a potential white source on turn 2 already, so that is part of the puzzle. Though Burning Tree Emissary pretty threatening here to build a potentially huge board, depending on how much follow-up there is. River Boar, another unblockable 2-drop, so pretty reasonably big board here, and Shira Lane is threatening to kill Green Prinny by about turn 4. Brainstorm looks some cards deeper, and there's a Tireless Tribe, but no third land, so that makes coming up with a combo pretty difficult here, because the combo setup for Green Prinny is having a Shadow Rift to get through the blockers, a Inside Out to switch power and toughness, and then usually you need one Dispel to get through your opponent's Vines of the Vastwood. Though sometimes if there's no Vines of the Vastwood, then just Shadow Rift and Inside Out can be sufficient. And Shira Lane top decks a Burning Tree Emissary here that was obviously not there the previous turn, otherwise it would have been run out already. And Rancor, so pretty fast clock and threatening to say, as I said, threatening to kill on turn 4. So Green Prinny really needs to come up with a combo here, and there's one blocker available, so it needs to be a combo involving both Shadow Rift and Inside Out. Willing to discard Brainstorm here just to prevent 2 damage, so Green Prinny knows that the pressure is on, and stalling out this aggression a little bit is still valuable, though it seems like there's still enough pressure on the board that it will be a kill regardless. Ash Barrens has to be cycled for a second island, so no combo possible this turn, has to just stall out for another turn and try to keep blocking. And the blocks here don't even seem like they work, this only prevents 2 damage, so there's 10 still coming through. So Green Prinny would also need to discard another card to keep this alive and have an Inside Out on the River Boa to prevent some extra damage. Swap this into a 1-power creature. And the Inside Out does come out. No Vines of the Vastwood there from Shira Lane to stop that from happening, but Green Prinny's hand size is also significantly being reduced. So down to 4 cards now, but survived the turn with the Inside Out. And now looks to find a second Inside Out to enable a combo, because there's no way for Green Prinny to survive an additional turn. So Gush, basically the perfect thing to draw here, to both build up a hand size for the discards and look for the extra outs, Shadow Rift and Inside Out. So Green Prinny manages to come up with all the pieces for the combo here, and barely wins against the very aggressive Stumpy draw. Quite the nice win there for Green Prinny, using all the tools in the toolbox to stay alive. Twice blocking with Tireless Tribe and discarding to keep it alive, and also using the Inside Out as basically a gain 3 life as well. So quite impressive how they managed to barely stay alive and then also came up with all the relevant pieces for the combo. So both pretty well played and very fortunate for Green Prinny. And if there ever was Vines of the Vastwood or something, it would have been impossible to win there. So that shows the problems that Tireless Tribe can have in this matchup, and they only get increased by the fact that Gutshot can come in addition to it. So on to game 2 here. But yeah, very well played by Green Pretty, and also pretty fortunate draw to get out of that. Now mulliganing to 6 on Shearer Lane side, on the Stumpy side, and no 1-drop, so that is a sigh of relief there for Tireless Tribe, though usually that indicates that there's a strong board flood coming in turn 2 with a bunch of 2-drops. And we see turn 1 Gitaxian Probe and willing to pay mana for it. I'm always uncertain whether I want to do that play, because there's still 10 cantrips in the deck that you could cast for blue mana, so if you draw into any of those on turn 1, like if you draw Ponder, Preordain or Brainstorm off of your Gitaxian Probe, and you have paid mana for it, then you're unable to cast those cantrips, and just paying life allows you to cantrip further by drawing into those. So you're paying 2 life for the opportunity to play a cantrip on turn 1 about 20% of the time, and that kind of depends on how strong the rest of your draw is. Usually 2 life is going to be better in this matchup, but it's something to consider even if you don't have a cantrip in the hand yet, because the amount of mana you have available and the amount of turns you have available is also very limited. No, cantrips are going to get you closer to going off, and you have a very limited amount of blue mana to work with before the game ends, but I could see 2 life being like barely good enough in terms of... Yeah, but if you need white swords and tribe, it very much depends on what the contents of your hand are. So we see Brainstorm here. Also, you can cut some number of Gitaxian Probes from the deck to begin with. Brainstorm and no shuffle yet, though that indicates Ash Barrens coming down for good draws for Green Pretty, and if there's a bad draw, then this Brainstorm just Brainstorm locked Green Pretty and there's no way to win anymore. We do see the Ash Barrens though grabbing the plains. No, grabbing an island, but no follow-up play, so that is very terrible for Green Pretty. I assume they have a white source in hand, otherwise they wouldn't have grabbed this island. But this draw is just way too slow, and as we said, a Tireless Tribe needs to come down by at least turn 3, and that was not the case here. Green Pretty failed to find a Tireless Tribe off of the Brainstorm, and therefore didn't develop a combo potential onto the board. So the Rancor gets Circular Logic, this Spawn gets sacrificed though, and Hunger of the Howlpack, that actually seems like a... it's kind of a weird play. So the Spawn was sacrificed to provide more bit for the Hunger of the Howlpack, so that it can provide 3 +1/+1 counters. And then Shearer Lane decided to go into combat, and then Hunger of the Howlpack. The upside is that you get to untap your Netta Sentinel, but there's a downside for sure, because your opponent can then daze the Hunger of the Howlpack, and you know that Green Pretty has a daze in the deck. I assume it's still barely better to untap this, because there's only 1 daze available and it doesn't really help Green Pretty that much. But it's definitely something to consider, because you could cast this Hunger of the Howlpack first main phase when the mana off of the Eldrazi Spawn was still floating, so that daze was unable to counter here. I think the damage potential, even with a tapped Netta Sentinel, is still strong enough to do that main phase actually, because then you hit them for 11 down to 3. Any green spell in your hand still untaps this Netta Sentinel, and even if the Netta Sentinel stays tapped, I think you're coming up with a win there pretty much every time. So I think this was likely correct, and I would have played around the days there by putting 3 +1/+1 counters on one of these. To play around the days. It's kind of close, but I think I like the play where you do this in main phase and not on... Like, they even target the Netta Sentinel here. I'm not sure if that's better. Also kind of depends on the contents of the hand. Okay, there's the tribe for Green Pretty, but just facing down a pretty dominating board position. Green Pretty seems to be looking for some outs here, has to gush during opponent's turn defensively, goes for a power and toughness switch on this Nest Invader to prevent some damage there as well. But even then it's still not enough damage. I think the only out for Green Pretty there was drawing into the Giga draws with Digash. Just discards cards here to keep the tribe alive, but doesn't survive these two attackers. Oh, to leave up a blocker. Yeah, with tribe on the board, leaving up the blocker is obviously better. Not saying that. Yeah, I agree the untap likely doesn't matter, and I think the playing around days does matter. So I would have not targeted. Yeah, I agree with Ankylazar. I definitely wouldn't have targeted the Nest Invader, and I wouldn't have targeted. Wouldn't have done it in combat. The Nest Invader is also like the best blocker, so you want it to be the weakest attacker, I think, because you will keep it back on defense a lot of the time on following turns. It was likely that the attack was going to be lethal regardless, so Actually, targeting Net Sentinel makes some sense though, because if your opponent Giga draws down your war to survive, and then you have an instant to untap your Net Sentinel and attack with it regardless, that could actually be helpful to have targeted the Net Sentinel. So it's something that I hadn't considered, that growing a Net Sentinel can play around Giga draws a little bit, and then having it untapped is a little bit more important because you don't want to spend your green spell pre-combat, you want it to be untapped already. That's kind of an interesting consideration, that the line of play that Shira Lane did played around the 1 Giga draws, but played into the 1 days. So both times you're like respecting different 1-drops, or 1-offs, I mean. And I'm not certain which is better, but it's definitely has advantages there, that you can make a 5/5 that is not Giga drawsable. But it needs to be a second Hunger of the Howl Pact for that to be relevant at all, because it's the only instant speed green card that untaps the Net Sentinel but wouldn't stop the Giga draws to begin with, because Vines of the Westwood already just gives hexproof to whichever creature they try to tap down. So if Shira Lane had a second Hunger of the Howl Pact in hand and wanted to respect Giga draws, I could see that being the play. That's a pretty interesting detail. It's a very small detail, but still interesting to see which line of play was better there. Okay, so we jump into game 3 of Green Prinny against Shira Lane. So both times Shira Lane just had a very explosive high pressure draw, and one time Green Prinny barely came up with the kill, and one time Green Prinny barely did not come up with the kill and was like 1 turn too late on the tribe. So tribe by turn 3 definitely is one of the requirements for Green Prinny to have a chance here. No, but he could run out tribe for 1 white and then tap down 3 blockers. As we saw there, Green Prinny had 3 blue mana available, so the Giga draws was fine with developing a tribe. Okay, so once again, Nest Invader, getting Morbid off of the second Nest Invader, and like while casting the second Nest Invader, and then following up with Hunger of the Howl Pact to apply a ton of pressure here, basically a 3/3 haste if it resolves. Second Hunger of the Howl Pact, second Dispel, so Green Prinny aggressively trading off Dispels here to reduce the amount of pressure. And the second spawn is also spent to cast a Vault Skirt, so once again Green Prinny facing down a ton of pressure here. And doesn't come up with the tribe on turn 3 or turn 4, so this is troublesome for Green Prinny. And Elephant Guide on the Vault Scourge, trying to build a huge life linker to get above the 21 life that is necessary out of tribe, and then making it so that Green Prinny has to discard an additional card. Circular Logic on the Elephant Guide, trying to keep the pressure a little bit lower. A bunch of cantrips here. Once again, Ponder first into Brainstorm second is the better way of finding specific cards. Evolving Wild shuffles the Brainstorm, and then Preordain looks at more cards, but Green Prinny still doesn't come up with the tribe. So that was pretty disappointing series of cantrips there. And Shadow Rift to cycle, Inside Out to cycle, and there's a Standard Bearer, but that's not the white creature that Green Prinny really wants to see. Gets gut shotted down, Vines of the Westwood, and Shira Lane comes up with the kill. And we once again saw Green Prinny just didn't find a Tireless Tribe quickly enough, and therefore couldn't come up with any counterplay and gets killed. So our final is Blue Red Delver against mono green Stumpy here. Shira Lane against HJ Kaiser. Yeah, those were some rough draws, but that's kind of what the matchup is. Sometimes you can combo quickly enough and have backup for it, and sometimes you just get ran over because your cantripping is too slow to find all the pieces. That was basically exactly as expected, and this time Green Prinny came out behind on that and Shira Lane came out ahead. Okay, finals time. Shira Lane on the play against HJ Kaiser, mulligans to 6. Who's favored in this matchup? I think Delver is favored in this. No, I'm not sure. People say like Stumpy beats up Mono Blue Delver. I think Blue Red is actually slightly favored, but I don't have much experience with the matchup from both sides. Stumpy is probably favored in game 1, but then HJ Kaiser gets to bring in like Swirling Sandstorms, which are amazing. So definitely just comes down to like Spellsters have to get some value. You have to keep River Boa in check. You have to not get ran over by Burning Tree Emissary starts, and also you want to keep Solana Ledgewalker in check, so you don't, like, if they get an Elephant Guide on Solana Ledgewalker or something, that can be troublesome. But if you get to like Spellster or something, Ninja at back, Spellster or something else, and then Lightning Bolt and Scrat down all the non-hexproof creatures, then it can be pretty strong for Delver. Kind of a close matchup, I think, especially in game 1. So we once again see the weaker opening of turn 1 Pit Skulk, which enables all the power buffing effects to be really strong, and attacking into Delver here, already kind of interesting, because the Delver could block and then place around a second Pit Skulk, but HJ Kaiser unwilling to block here, which makes a lot of sense, because the Delver could both turn into a bigger blocker once it transforms and can potentially offer some counterplay. And Nest Invader into Vault Scourge, once again a pretty strong follow-up here. We see Counterspell being revealed, which is not at its best in this matchup and usually gets boarded out, because as we can see, Stumpy is just way too quick at flooding the board, and then having counter magic available for 2 mana to counter 1 mana threats is not that great. Nest Invader attacking in, so the Delver actually successfully holds off these 1/1s. Not trading there worked out very nicely for HJ Kaiser, immediately having a 3/2 blocker available and stopping 2 of the opponent's creatures. Nest Invader gets traded for the counterspell, and that makes it likely that there's just no pump spell in the hand for Shira Lane, and that means that HJ Kaiser can freely shoot down this Nest Invader instead of taking more damage, but gets more or less punished right away by Shira Lane sticking a Rancor here. The counterspell that he knew about and the Scrat that he might have suspected were both tapped down, and then this Rancor comes down and resolves, and the Pit Skulk becomes more difficult to block and is now wielding a Rancor that is going to come back once it gets dealt with. So pretty nice play by Shira Lane there to wait until the window of opportunity showed itself to get this Rancor onto the board. Now pre-combat you would just run into the Scrat. Like you play Rancor, they Scrat in response and it gets fizzled. And also you knew about the counterspell, so the Rancor might even get counterspelled. So into open mana it seemed pretty terrible. And Shira Lane was very disciplined there, waiting for the Rancor to have an opportunity to really resolve it and not run it into a burn spell in response. So now the Delver of Secrets has to be traded off for the Pit Skulk and the Rancor comes back. So that was a very favorable exchange for Shira Lane. I think that was really well played, not playing it pre-combat, and would have just set Shira Lane up for a blowout if they did. Burning Tree, and then now kind of forced into running out the Rancor again. Not really any point in waiting, and there's no second burn spell available here. Revealing Evolving Wilds just for the fun of it, and then cycles Ash Barrens there to shuffle it away. It seems weird that the Delver didn't attack there actually, because best case you're just trading your Delver off for this Vault Scourge, and then they don't really want to be blocking on defense, so you could have just sneaked 1 damage in there with the Delver, I think. Fairy Miscreant being revealed. HJ Kaiser just chooses to always reveal apparently instead of waiting to see which card it actually is. Yeah, that is kind of weird to me. Okay, so last turn the Delver didn't attack into the Vault Scourge because the Vault Scourge could have blocked, and HJ Kaiser already had a Ninja in hand. So I think I would always attack there and threaten the Ninja, and if they block I think it's fine for you, then you just hardcast Ninja. And if they don't block, you just get the Ninja them a turn earlier. So I'm not sure why a 1/1 Delver of Secrets untransformed didn't attack into 3/1 Vault Scourge there. Because I think both the trade and the no block were very favorable to you. That seemed a little bit confusing, though it works out for HJ Kaiser now as the Delver gets to freely attack and enable the Ninja. So I think the only explanation is that like HJ Kaiser was on no additional creatures and wanted to really make sure this Ninja comes down. And if the Delver gets traded off, there was no creature as an enabler. Yeah, made a land drop, I think. And the top card of the deck was Fairy Miscreant this turn, so I think there was both land and Ninja in the hand last turn. Seems kind of weird, because I think Shira Lane was very much not interested in the trade, so you would just get the Delver hit in for sure. But yeah, HJ Kaiser seemed to very highly value getting this Ninja down, actually, even more so than being willing to trade off the Delver. Yeah, I don't know, land drop now off of the Ninja draw, the Evolving Wilds. And the Miscreant we knew about. Yeah, there was a counterspell in hand for sure, so he wasn't willing to hardcast the Ninja because of the counterspell, and also unwilling to trade apparently. I'm not sure about the being unwilling to trade. Blocks with the Miscreant now, which just trades for Vines of the Westwood, prevents a bunch of... Oh no, it doesn't actually prevent that much damage because of the Rancor. So, pretty damaging still. Also we see HJ Kaiser making the better play with the Delver here, holding onto this Evolving Wilds to utilize it with both Brainstorm and the Delver trigger to fully take advantage of the shuffle that it offers. So we previously saw some players in this top 8 not holding onto the Evolving Wilds in their Delver decks, and here it works out really nicely for HJ Kaiser to do that and still being disciplined and holding this Evolving Wilds. Yeah, it seems like Delver was the only enabler in hand. Still seems like it's kinda cautious, because I think the Vault Scourge would very rarely block there, and it would also be fine for you to trade for the Rancor when it's on defense. It doesn't tremble over. But definitely very interesting play and very disciplined by HJ Kaiser to try and hold onto that Delver to really make sure that Ninja comes down. So Evolving Wild still getting held here for Brainstorm purposes. Rancor being put on an otherwise useless spawn so that it gets some value, and the Ninja is being traded off for this spawn. Delver enables another Ninja hit, so HJ Kaiser also really values card advantage and getting Ninjas down here. Gushes into bolting down the Netta Sentinel and then a Ponder follow up and replace the Delver. So still generating a ton of card advantage here. This Rancor keeps coming down over and over again, but the creatures are just being traded off every time, so the Rancor doesn't get that much value. Revealed Brainstorm here, so this Evolving Wasp finally gets to reward HJ Kaiser, and holding that for like 6 turns in a row was greatly rewarding him there. So pretty great play to do that. And the Delver was held back to trade, though that just means that the Ninja is being traded off on defense by the Netta Sentinel. So you could have played it the other way around, that the Delver attacks and the Ninja is held back if you're just willing to trade anyways, but this made it more interesting for Shira Lane to trade than the other way around, because the Delver attack you just couldn't do anything against, and the Ninja attack you were willing to trade. So that leaves Shira Lane with an empty board now, and HJ Kaiser just gets to turn out the card advantage into board presence and try to close out the game with Friars. And yeah, we see the spell stutters finally show up and close out this game. So Chiralain gives it up after the last threat was spell stuttered and probably a handful of forests and pump spells that are useless in such a board position. So on to the last game of the tournament. HJ Kaiser against Chiralain game 2, so they got to sideboard. Chiralain bringing in a bunch of Scattershot Archers and maybe some gut shots as well. And HJ Kaiser gets to bring in Swirling Sandstorm at the very least, and then that's probably it. You could have a null, but it seems to hit or miss. It counters Elephant Guide and Rancor and Vault Scourge, but doesn't have that many targets. And we see Scattershot Archer, and once again Chiralain really wants to make sure these Rancors resolve instead of running them into open mana, both with Spell Stutters or Lightning Bolts available in response. And HJ Kaiser just on double island, which usually indicates Spell Stutter, but those are not available here into the Scattershot Archers and could mean Counterspell, though those are frequently boarded out. We see Brainstorm here, so likely a Ash Burns follow-up. Exactly, we see Ash Burns for a Mountain, so that solves all the mana issues and gets a full value Brainstorm there for HJ Kaiser. And the Scattershot Archer is just willing to keep attacking for 3 every turn, which is not really its main goal in this matchup, but it already disincentivizes flying attackers. Flying creatures. Though here it kind of backfires. The attack of the Scattershot Archer was necessary to trigger Bloodthirst here, but HJ Kaiser is capable of getting value out of his Spell Stutter here with Scattershot Archer being on the board, so that is kind of mediocre for Chiralain that the Spell Stutter that would have otherwise been stranded in the hand for a while is getting full value. Though follow-up creature here, now that the counterspell mana is tapped down, there's a Ripper Boar with regeneration mana available. Lightning Bolt tries to take it down. Ripper Boar regenerates to survive, so that indicates a second burn spell here from HJ Kaiser to take down this Ripper Boar. That was kind of a good exchange for Chiralain to make up for the fact that the Pit Skulk just got spell stuttered. So Scrat takes down the Ripper Boar, but that was a clean 2-for-1 on Chiralain's side. And this time this Pit Skulk comes down pre-combat to play around a second spell stutter and free up the Scattershot Archer's ability to shoot the spell stutter down. And once again we see Nest Invader getting counterspelled, so HJ Kaiser also keeps valuing having counterspells in this deck here, after already keeping in counterspells against red deck wins. So that would indicate once again that there's Delver of Secrets being boarded out, maybe some number of ninjas, and maybe some number of counterspells were being shaved, but HJ Kaiser never takes them out entirely and wants to have some number of counterspells in the deck to deal with opposing threats and just overload on removal encounters and deal with every single threat that is being presented, then take over the game with card advantage. So conventional wisdom often is to cut down on the number of counterspells because they interact inefficiently and poorly, but HJ Kaiser knows that having a ton of interaction is still valuable, a critical mass of interaction, so it doesn't matter how efficient each individual piece of interaction is, as long as you have enough of them you get to keep the game under control. So there are still counterspells available here. And we see Swirling Sandstorm now takes out both of the creatures. The Scattershot Archer can shoot down the spell stutters, but now it's a clean board. And Chiralain had to build a new board here while HJ Kaiser was tapped out. Now HJ Kaiser can once again have open counter magic, and there's no board, though this Augur of Bolas misses there. So now new threat is being found by Chiralain off of the top deck, but another counter spell, and now Chiralain has no board. HJ Kaiser has a clean board and can start attacking with this Augur, and then Chiralain will have a ton of terrible top decks of pump spells and gut shots and like Rancors and so on that are stuck in the hand as long as there's no creature on the board. Burning Tree attempts another creature. This one resolves. And Rancor coming down and Spellstutter tries to catch the Rancor before it comes down. And Sheer Lane passes back, still behind on the board now. And these Augur of Bolasses can play defense against the Burning Tree pretty easily. More Augurs, creating more card advantage potentially. Reveals a Scrat, so that's already an answer to a creature here. You don't really feel like you're in any hurry to Scrat down the creature, you can just wait for a Rancor or Elephant Guy to come down and wait to that point before spending your Scrat. Nest Invader, another creature that just gets outclassed by Augur really easily. These Augurs can double or triple block down the Burning Tree. There's Hunger of the Howlpack trying to grow it. Scrat in response that Sheer Lane knew about, but the fact that Sheer Lane is willing to commit to this means that there's also Protective spell there, and it's the Vines of the Vastwood, so this works out. The two Augurs get fought down in combat, and there's a 5/5 Burning Tree Emissary sticking around afterwards, but another Scrat takes out the Burning Tree and leaves Sheer Lane with once again no pressure whatsoever while facing down this Augur. Another 2/2 just applies some pressure, but Rancor top deck actually really good for Sheer Lane there, allowing this Nest Invader to make profitable attacks into the Augur. Brainstorm, Preordain can clean out the cards off of the Brainstorm that you don't want. And Gush as the follow-up, Fairy Miscreant, so just drowning Sheer Lane in card advantage there of all these cantrips and card draw spells. And a pretty stable board now. The Nest Invader can keep attacking with 4 power there and going for a double block. It's actually an interesting double block as well. It prevents some more damage, but he could theoretically double block with these Fairy Miscreants to also make the trade but keep the Augur on the board because it's the better long-term blocker. And both Augur and Fairy Miscreant can be decent bounces for the Ninja. So I'm not certain if you wouldn't rather have the Augur around for later turns, though this works a lot better if you draw the 3rd or 4th Fairy Miscreant so that you have this on the board still. Also works better with Spellstutter in hand. So if there's Spellstutter in hand, I would understand, because then you can Spellstutter an Elephant Guide or something by keeping 3 fairies around. But I think in a vacuum I would have preferred double blocking with 2 Fairy Miscreants and keeping the Augur around, both for ninja synergies and because it has more toughness for later turns. Was kind of surprised by that double block with the Augur involved there. Just made the Rancor a lot more favorable to the opponent, though here the Rancor comes back down again and there's Lightning Bolt in response, so complete blowout for HJ Kaiser. Gets rid of the last remaining threat, and there's the Ninja. So I think, well, I guess that makes sense that you would, maybe it was just a very good play because of the Ninja. That's interesting. I would have assumed intuitively that you would want Augur of Bolas to go with your Ninja, so you can like Ninja, replay Augur, get another spell, another Lightning Bolt or Scrat or something. But this is also very nice. If you want to bounce the Spellstutter, then you have the Fairy Miscreant still on the board and your Fairy count is still 2, so you can counter a follow-up 2-drop. So that might just actually be the way tighter play with the Ninja in hand to set up a Spellstutter for 2. Because like a Spellstutter for 2 is basically counterspell. That ends the game basically, but like Spellstutter for 2 is basically counterspell, and drawing a counterspell was better there than drawing Augur. So I think I actually like that play. That was pretty tight. I wouldn't have intuitively done that. I would have definitely double blocked with Miscreants, but with the Ninja being in hand, I think I like the Augur plus Miscreant double block actually, now that I think about it a little bit more. So HJ Kaiser definitely made some very tight and very unintuitive but rewarding lines of plays there. Pretty frequently holding on to the Evolving Wilds for very long. Like this double block with the Miscreant and Augur. Just a bunch of very nice plays. So deserving winner, I would say. Also a Legacy Master has won a Eternal Weekend, I think, or Bazaar of Moxen or something. And yeah, I think he's an Eternal Weekend winner. and Legacy Specialist, so bringing his mastery of cantripping to the Pauper format as well, and finding success here with Blue Red Delver. Wins this challenge in this top 8 by beating Stompy and Mono Blue Delver, and also what was the quarterfinal matchup, and beating Mono Red. Red deck wins. So nice run there for HJ Kaiser. I think it was a 10-0 run actually, let me check. Yeah, no, 9-1. So 6-1 in the Swiss, only losing to Green Prinny in the final round, so lost to Tireless Tribe once. Already beat both Brevenix and Dissonance in the Swiss, so also beating multiple top 8 competitors there. Here on Dissonance on Stumpy, Brevenix on Mono Blue. Can't really see what HJ Kaiser played against earlier than that, but definitely played against 3 top 8 competitors in the Swiss, and then also a nice little run in the top 8 to win the tournament 9-1. So congratulations to HJ Kaiser. And yeah, beating multiple hyper aggressive decks there as well. The Swirling Sandstorms coming in really handy, well prepared there for the aggressive decks. And yeah, that worked out nicely for HJ Kaiser. So congrats there, and that's it for the top 8 analysis. Let's close this out.